People can go crazy trying to stop a cyber attack. Acronis, take the headache out of IT security.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jeff Hardy, and joining me today is Gerald McKelt, our CISO. I'm saying that correct this time, right, Gerald? CISO.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here, Jeff. This is great.
Wonderful. Guys, thanks for everybody for coming. We don't do very many of these live streams on social media, but we should do more of them. We do a lot of other events, though, but I hope you've had a chance to join us. But if social media is where you like to get your content, we're here for you. Our topic today is cybercrime is evolving, so should you. And I think we just have to go ahead and get started here. But what ties all this together is, let me just say a word about the Acronis Threat Research Unit. This is something that's really important to us. It's an important initiative inside of Acronis. And what is it really? Well, in a very important way, the Acronis Threat Research Unit is just a formal structure about the materials and stuff we were already doing inside of Acronis. We've always had a threat research unit in charge of supporting our MSP partners, helping them determine if a suspicious payload is something that needs to be looked at or something needs to be blocked. We do this type of research and original research and support all the time for our partners, but we're letting everybody know about it now. So what you'll find in Acronis Threat Research is original threat research, community engagement, best practices recommendations. These are coming soon. This is really amazing. We'll actually provide you security and hardening best practices for different environments. The Cyberthreats Report that we're going to be talking about in a minute. And we'll have lots of partner briefings support and also collaborative events. So if you get an invitation from Acronis or you see a social media post talking about an Acronis True Security Day, True stands for Threat Research Unit. So what that means is you should attend. You should try to come to these Acronis True Security Days so that you can see some of our latest research, get the latest cyber stats reports directly for the region in which you're in. We're going to have these customized for every particular region, and it's going to be something that's really great for you, and it's going to be really great for all of us. And we hope you come and you attend. So that's the Acronis Threat Research Unit. And one of the first publications this year of the Threat Research Unit was the Cyberthreats Report. Gerald, why don't you and I pick up some highlights? Why don't you take that and just jump in and talk about some of the big takeaways that have happened in our latest version?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Jeff. It's like for having me here. There's a lot of good material in the report itself. It's like we'll be adding a link to the download section for this later on as part of the chat and the notes for this session. I would strongly encourage every single one of you to take a closer look at this. It's like we've been preparing these in different formats for quite a while now, like Jeff said, in addition to all of the other material that we're putting out there as part of our Acronis True initiative, and it's really a lot of good information, all condensed into a very succinct and consistent set of documents and reports that are actionable. And I think that is really critically, it's like for this report and for all the other material that Acronis is putting out, that we're really trying to make sure that the material that we're providing is directly applicable to the business of our managed service providers, of our partners, of their end customers, our end customers, and essentially the entire community. So there's a lot of things in there to be learned, and we'll be going on the next slide through some of those findings. What we've seen really is like still a lot of, and actually more ransomware than ever. It's like this is really something. It's like if I want to summarize the entire report in like one or two words, it's like ransomware is still the key issue that a lot of MSPs and their customers are working with. there's a number of different ways. It's like how attackers get in. We'll go into a little bit more detail later on. It's like how this really breaks down and what that means. But
Hey,
phishing
Gerald,
is, yeah.
let me ask you specifically about that unpatched vulnerabilities. When I was looking at your slides here in advance of our presentation, that one jumped out at me. I mean, I was aware that phishing attacks were escalating, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But still, unpatched vulnerabilities that, with all the automation tools inside of Acronis systems and inside competing systems, I thought that this problem was solved. It evidently is not.
It's harder than you think, right? It's like, I mean, you said, it's like we have RMMs, like our remote management solutions, which do include patching capabilities, not only for operating systems, but also for applications on top. But the issue is not necessarily having the technology, but it's like also having processes, and then more importantly, also having the time to patch. So it's like I remember in jobs past, it's like where we had very large database clusters, which really drove the heart of the engine of the product that we were selling. And patching a database cluster is like, given the size of the systems that were involved, given the size of the clusters, et cetera, could take days or sometimes even longer. So it's like, if you really start to patch stuff like that, you have to be extremely careful. You have to make sure that you do this with absolute accuracy, and you have to make sure that you have the right downtimes for that. So while we have the patches, we have the technology to roll this out most efficiently, there's still some work that needs to be done by our MSP partners, by everyone who's responsible for systems, to do this in the most consistent way. And if that takes too long by using manual approaches or so, then you open up the window for an attacker to go in. So it's like, the sooner you can get this done, the more automation you can put behind this, the better.
So you're saying it's actually making it a discipline strategy. And yes, patching is critical. Yes, you can automate it inside of a maintenance window, but it still takes that discipline to make sure it happens when it needs to happen.
Indeed, absolutely. It's like, and there's a lot of interdependencies that you have to solve and be on top of. And it's like, if the technology to roll out those patches is your bottleneck, you really have a lot of other issues that can be solved away by using the right technologies. Totally agree.
Cool. All right. Thanks. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just thought that would always
no. This is good. I love it. It's like there's also other vectors. It's like, believe it or not, remote desktop access is still being exploited in large numbers. People are not locking down their front doors properly. So those kind of like systems actually get sold in the digital underground. You can rent as many remote desktop servers in as many different countries as you would like. For a small fee to the respective provider of that, and that's obviously makes it very hard to keep things locked down. We saw a lot of ransomware cases in the fourth quarter. It's like we had a couple of key players in this kind of like area, including Ransom Hub, Akira, and some others, and it's really out there. Just like you mentioned the vulnerabilities, we talked about this a little bit. It's like there's even a lot of well-known vulnerabilities that are being exploited in a very targeted way by the respective ransomware gangs or criminal underground actors. So the issue here is really, this is not just somebody's or just a few people's problem. This is a general problem to get those vulnerabilities patched at the right time, and this makes it obviously hard. Like I said, it's like email attacks, phishing, and similar kind of things that increased tremendously. We're seeing significant improvements with some of the automation technologies, with some of the advanced IT management technologies that are available. But there's now really a shift towards the person, and it's like, we'll talk about that in a minute as well.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
What's next?
Let's roll the next slide. So we said, it's like the number of ransomware is like is increasing. It's like over time. It's not dramatically, right? But it's like, if you look year over year, it's like you see the trend going up, and it's like, I think I really attribute this to a number of factors. The digital underground has been seeing such an efficient industrialization and labor sharing model. It's like, it's amazing how effective those markets work. So it's like, effective markets obviously create more of the same product. In this case, unfortunately, ransomware victims, right? So we're seeing really an acceleration of the different kind of like ransomware attacks through automation on the attacker side. And now really not just hitting the big firms, but it's like really going after mid-range companies, going after smaller companies, because it becomes affordable. It becomes something that is actually doable through various kind of like techniques, and that's an issue for our partners, for our MSPs, and for everybody else. You really need to be aware that this is not something that happens to somebody else. This can happen to you.
Hey, Gerald, you know what? We were chatting before. You actually said something that really caught my attention. The number of attacks is going up, but the average ransom demands going down. And there were, if I remember correctly, there were two things that you said two things that jumped out at me that were reasons this happened. One is better security at the top, and the other one is cyber insurance. Could you expand on those two things?
Yeah, it's like there's more. I think there's a bunch of things that are happening. It's like the very large firm, the critical infrastructure, financial firms, etc. It's like they really lock things down amazingly well. So it's like the quote unquote cyber haves are better off, and it's like they're in defending themselves in many ways, while the cyber have-nots, or maybe have not so much, are now increasingly being targeted by those kind of like increasing number of actors as well, right? It's like I said, the market for underground services is really increasing very efficiently, and it's like there's only so many Fortune 500 companies out there, so they're going mid-market. It's like mid-market companies cannot necessarily afford a $50 million or more ransomware fee, so the marginal cost to really roll out these attacks is minimal. And as such, it's like they're happy with getting smaller amounts. But like you're saying, it's like the insurance also plays a role. I remember way back in the days, it was really not particularly hard to get fairly hefty it's like insurance total insurance sums for cyber insurance without paying too many premiums. That has changed dramatically. It's like anyone who has gone through cyber insurance, buying cyber insurance, knows the lengthy questionnaires, the in-depth kind of consultations that you have to do with your agents, etc., in order to get some cyber insurance. And there's often some exclusions and additional riders, etc., etc. So the total amount that is available during a cyber event, during this ransomware event from your insurance, is a lot less than it used to be just 10 or 15 years ago. It's like when things started to heat up, well, 10 years ago, when things started to heat up. So from that perspective, the attacker understand that as well. And it's like if they ask a small company, again, it's like for $50 million worth of Bitcoin in order to get this done, they won't get it. It's like they know they can't get it. It's like they don't have the necessary funds, and they don't have the insurance. So now they get settling for less and still making some good money.
Yeah, this makes total sense to me. I did a presentation a few years back called The Economics of Cybersecurity. And so basically you're just saying it's a pure economic equation. First of all, it's more expensive to attack a big company because they're a harder target these days. It's cheaper to launch a ransomware attack than it ever was. So you can now afford to go after lower, say, value targets. And because of decreasing payouts of cyber insurance companies, they have to respond to the capacity of the victim to pay. So this all makes sense to me from an economic perspective.
There's also, like I said, it's like even more people out there who can do it, because the tricky parts, like writing the malware, it's like getting the ransomware command and control infrastructure set up. It's like the handling the payments, et cetera. A lot of that are specialized services available in underground markets. So the only thing you really need to do is like pick the victims, like put together your top list players that you want to pay for services for, and then go after whoever you want to go after. So what used to be a very highly specialized and complex endeavor now turns into something, it's not quite point and click, but it's getting darn close to that.
Cool. All right.
Excellent.
What's next?
Let's roll. So again, it's like this is an overview over some of the groups that we identified. It's like Ransom Hub, LockBit, Play, Akira are definitely top players. There are a couple of other players down there as well.
Gerald, let me stop you, because slides like this have always kind of annoyed me, right? Because it's like if I'm going down a dark alley in a city and I get mugged by somebody, do I really care who mugged me? I just really care that what value, what does this matter?
It doesn't matter to the individual victim. I totally agree with you, Jeff. It's like, and it's like I've always also been the same as you. It's like, do I really need comprehensive attribution for every single little thing that happened to me? I don't. It's like I said, it's like if I get mugged on the street and it's like my wallet is stolen and my cash is gone and I need to redo my cards, I don't care who has them. It's like it's just annoying. It does play a little bit of a role because sometimes their tactic and techniques change, right? So Ransom Hub would typically use different kind of approaches versus Akira or versus some of the other ones. And the interesting thing there then becomes is like, what is the most pertinent one today? What do you need to protect yourself against? I think that's where the true report really, Acronis True Report really comes into play. It's like, let's take a look at some of the key ones. Let's make sure that we prioritize fixing the vulnerabilities and issues associated with those particular actors. And then down the road, it's like for the ones that are not quite so common, it's like we'll address later. Does that make sense?
Thanks. That clears it up for me.
Perfect. So it's like, this is what we found. It's like, again, it's like, if you want more details in terms of what is what, I highly encourage you to take a look at the report itself, and then we'll figure out what happens afterwards. Let's go to the next slide. So this is actually, it's a super busy slide. It's like, I will not go through every single number here, but it's like what you see on the left-hand side are the initial attack vectors. It's like it's credential loss, it's exploitation of trust relationships, it's phishing, it's RDPs, like we already talked about that, and it's unpatched vulnerabilities. So different types of things that you see there. And it's like, if you look generally over time, it's like the number of issues around technical concerns, purely technical concerns, are starting to get smaller, right? So it's like we are seeing a lot of things like phishing and social engineering in general, which are relevant here. So
and that maps directly to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. It maps directly over, or how?
Yeah, it's not a direct match. It's like we see it's like what follows here after. It's like you start with phishing. Obviously, phishing is also an attack technique, but it's like what happens afterwards is that there are other things that need to happen. It's like you just phish somebody to click a link. Well, you know what? It's like, what does that mean? It's like that doesn't mean anything, right? It's like, so they click the link. Boo-hoo. It's like, I'm clicking at that. Well, I'm not clicking 1,000 links a day. Hopefully, none of our listeners are, but it's like some people do, right? It's like we have our frequent clickers in every company, and it's like that's always an issue. But what happens afterwards is that once the initial payload, once the initial stage or loader are in place, it's like they do certain things on a system. It's like they very often exploit PowerShell. They often add scheduled tasks. They often add scheduled task jobs, add auto start items, etc., etc. And that's really what we see on the right-hand side. It's not super duper accurate in terms of like how we break things down, but it does make a lot of sense to really take a look at what's happening there. Because again, it's like if you have an endpoint protection solution, you want to make sure that all of those frequently used attack techniques are actually covered by that, or in some way monitorable or alertable through your endpoint platform. And that's really the key why we focus on that.
Gerald, you mentioned PowerShell, and you know far better than I do. This has been your profession for decades. But when I'm working with the True team and I'm helping them, with their reports and getting some of the materials published, I'm seeing PowerShell in almost every report I'm looking at these days. Is that something that's expanding, or is that something that's stable, or is it super important? Why am I seeing that?
Well, the thing is, this is like it's like any kind of good threat actor will use or leverage as much of the tooling that they already find on the systems. Like if you need to upload your specialized toolkit, it's like your specialized sometimes scripts or what have you, in order to execute your attack. Then at the end of the day, what happens is that turns into noise. It's like on your network and ultimately on your respective endpoints. Noise is the biggest enemy of the attacker, right? It's like, so you want to live with what we've been calling for a bunch of years now, lullbins, or living off the land binaries, right? So it's like you want to use PowerShell, you want to use existing kind of tools such as Netcat on Unix systems in order to be able to stay as much below the radar as you possibly can. So what happens there really is like you don't execute any fancy kind of scripts, any kind of fancy beacons or so. You leverage existing kind of capabilities that are already in place, and then you start to attack through those. Now, what can you do about this? There's actually a question that just came from the audience. What can you do against PowerShell or lolbins in general? It's like, I think that's a really, really good question because it's not quite so easy. It's like you do need an endpoint solution that just does not exclusively rely on some signatures. It's like the old antivirus did. But you need an increasingly a comprehensive set of different kind of like detection engines that look at signatures for sure. It's like there is still some malicious code that gets uploaded. There's no doubt about it, particularly in the early stages. But it's like you also need to look at behavioral analysis. You need to look at network activities, like including the kind of URLs people interact with or DNS servers that people interact with. You need to look at all kinds of things. And it's like that's something that I'm really happy with what we're having at Acronis in this day. It's like we have a very, very comprehensive engine that does both real-time system call monitoring on those systems. So it's like really as it happens, we inject ourselves and evaluate what's going on. But we also do various kind of like techniques that are sometimes a little bit more compute intensive, but can detect issues very quickly after something happens, so in near real time. And as such, then use heuristics, machine learning, and other techniques in order to identify attacks underway.
Also, I did help some people with a presentation on, AI and ML processes and techniques inside of Acronis. And we actually have some ML techniques that actually analyze when something's happening out of bound, when it's not when some sort of action is occurring, even if something with PowerShell, if it doesn't occur during a normal PowerShell operation or PowerShell window, it can detect it and isolate it. I was reading that the other day. It was fascinating.
Yeah, it's totally. It's like, especially if you look at things like ransomware. What does ransomware do? Well, very frequently it has a lot of encryption operations. Now, it's like a lot of encryption operations on a lot of files is something that just a normal operating system doesn't do. So it's been well known for many, many years now that it's like ransomware activity on a system can be detected by really looking at how the entire encryption thing goes. Ransomware actors have been getting smarter. It's like, so they've been really better in terms of like not doing everything at once in bulk, because that's how you get caught easily and then stopped easily. But it's like essentially trickling this through time in order to just encrypt a little file here, encrypt something there. And then only when they really get triggered, it's like then try to do the final push for encrypting as much as possible to cause the largest amount of damage. There are obviously techniques to detect that as well. And I think we're really it's a cat and mouse games, like as always, between the attackers and the defenders like us.
This is actually to directly answer the question that we got in social media, and it's also to the point of our title of our session today is, how do you evolve? Well, what you're saying is that you need to take and use advanced, something like, we're very biased. We like Acronis products, right? But, you have to have advanced security with EDR and an attached backup and recovery system that unifies all this together to make sure that's the only way to defend against this type of stuff.
Yeah, it's like comprehensive in defense in depth, right? It's like that's ultimately what this comes down to. It's like you need to not only focus on one layer of protection. It's like, oh yeah, it's like we got passwords and two-factor authentication, everything is secure, because there's so many ways of what can happen. And it's actually a great segue into the next slide, where we see it's like that a lot of the attacks is like are now really coming in through social engineering in some form or another. It's like in general, it's like the very advanced attacks, it's like the hacking attacks or whatever other kind of means are not necessarily the ones that are really relevant. It's like if you look at going from 2023 to 2024, it's like you really see an increase, particularly in social engineering. Phishing is even going down. It's kind of funny. It's like our email security solutions, including our own, like are really starting to address a lot of phishing as well. Although I'm expecting that this is going to come back again, because that's always the ebb and flow of better detection versus better concealment. But it's like in general, it's like there's a lot more social engineering happening in different kind of ways, and that is the hardest to defend against, right? It's like because it's not a technology, it's ultimately about people and processes, and it's
Okay,
like
let me drill down
yeah,
on that. Okay, because we just launched our security awareness training service inside of Acronis for our MSP partners to use. It's an integrated service, but is that what you're talking about? I mean, is it really is it underscoring and making that even more important than it's been in the past?
I would say so, and it's like it's well. The thing is, should have been super important from the earliest days of computing, right? It's like when we talk about different areas to focus on, different domains of security, it's like in some form or another, it's like we always slice it by confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But I also like, especially when talking about defense in depth, I love to talk about people, process, and technology, and literally in that order. This is all about people. It's like if I have the greatest mousetrap on the planet, and it's like nobody's there to set it up and know how to operate it, set it up, and then work with that. The mousetrap is pointless, and it's the same thing with security defense. It's like I can have the most wonderful kind of gadgets that do all kinds of fancy things, but if there's nobody to monitor what's going on with them, they're going to be overrun pretty quickly. And I think that's really, really important to keep in mind. It's like this is about people. This is about your admins. This is about your technicians. This is about your end users. It's like that they are respectively for their respective areas capable of identifying what are issues, what are concerning activities, how can they respectively solve. It's like I always loved it. It's like when people said in the past, it's like think like a CISO. And it's like that's really what everyone should do. It's like no matter what, it's like be as paranoid as you possibly can. CISOs are paranoid, I can tell you that. And it's like it's really good for you to be reasonably paranoid. It's like don't go quite so far, but it's like it's good to be reasonably paranoid as well because that ultimately really helps to protect everybody, and that keeps you on track with the kind of processes you need to follow. And then once you have people and processes in place, then the technologies that we provide or that the industry provides can really act as great force multipliers, locking down things, as we see here on this thing. It's like it's really a lot about social engineering.
So the evolution point, we're talking about how MSPs need to evolve, right, to address these threats. The evolution point is do more training and more extensive training with your clients to help keep them safe and keep your internal team safe. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, it's like new people are coming into the industry every day. It's like new people are coming into companies every day. It's like you may know things. It's like, and a lot of people that you work with may know things. And it's like you may have experienced staff, but there's always new folks coming in. It's like whether they're new to the industry in general, just out of college, or whether they've been coming from other parts of the overall economy, and they don't necessarily know. It's like it is always worth repeating things over and over again, not only to be annoying. Love being annoying myself. It's like I'm usually fairly successful at it, but it's like it's also really just to hammer this down. It's like repeat this for everybody and really turn this everything related to security into muscle memory. It's like you should not be thinking about it's like is this that or the other. It's like this should be automatic. This my bank is sending me a link to click. That's already suspicious by itself. Banks don't send links, right?
Yeah.
And similarly, it's like the same kind of things for admins, et cetera, et cetera. If there's suddenly some deviation from normal activities and you get an alert from an XDR or what have you, you should be acting upon that very quickly. It's like think back in the old days where the very advanced technologies were available at Target, but people had just ignored it. And it's like that is or Equifax, et cetera. So you can go through any of the mega breaches that we had over the last 10 years. There was very frequently, not always, I don't want to say that, but very frequently some form of human error involved by some of the people who actually sort of kind of should know better, if we're honest. And not necessarily because of maliciousness, sometimes just because they forgot. It's like that's part of it as well. And that's why we have people who are really good at things and processes who remind us what to do.
And I think it's really important for us in the field as well, because I coined a term. I'm not even sure if somebody else has already coined a term for it that I call, expertise bias, right? The more you know about a topic, right, the more you can assume that other people know some subset or as much as you know. So, rehearsing the basics with our teams and rehearsing the basics with our clients on a regular basis, it is usually not a wasted effort. We may think, well, I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to do this again. But but I think that repetition is really, really important.
You do this. I mean, you do this in martial arts. You do your katas, right? It's like you just do them over and over again. You do this in other physical activities. It's like if you're a dancer, it's like you do your basic steps over and over and over again. And all of those kind of things are really, really critically important as you move forward, because that really, like I said, helps turns it into muscle memory. And I think that's where security awareness also comes into play.
Hey, Gerald, let's take it real quick and talk about two more topics real quick, and then we'll let everybody go. The first is this, is like everybody's still talking about AI. I think it's worthwhile if everybody's still talking about AI. There's the good side and the bad side. What do MSPs need to do to evolve and adapt to AI? Because it just exists. It's neither good nor, AI is neither good nor bad on the face of it.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like, is the internet good or bad, right? I mean, it's like there's so much crime on the internet, it's got to be bad, right? It's like AI, it's like there's so much bad things happening with it, it's like it's got to be bad. I think it's a silly question. It's like, to be honest with you, it's like, not that you ask silly questions, Jeff. I would never point that out, but it's like, whatever. No, but it's like it's really a thing where I would say it's like AI. First of all, what are we talking about AI? Are we talking about generative AI? Are we talking about machine learning? Are we talking about any other kind of like technologies that we have developed over the years? It's really important to figure out, it's like, what do we mean? What context does this happen in? And how this could potentially apply to security? Machine learning, any kind of like endpoint protection, for example, any kind of email security solution, or generally it's like any kind of security solution in many instances, does rely on heuristics and machine learning in order to be able to flag potentially suspicious activities, and then sometimes automatically remediate it, or at least alert administrators, alert technicians that something's going on. It's like that's bread and butter at this point in time. We've been doing this for many years in different forms. It's just gotten better. I think what you're probably referring to is what people in these days understand what AI is, which is generative AI, right? It's like capabilities like where you can generate human consumable content, whether it's images, sounds, videos, chats, or what have you, through a large language model or a similar kind of like generative AI model that was created, and how this could be used. It's a tool. It's a tool like everything else, right? It's like you can use generative AI to create extremely capable chatbots that can help people very quickly. It's like you can use generative AI, and that's what we're doing actually at Acronis right now, to allow querying for incidents that have happened in your EDR environments. And it's like trying to understand this much faster, instead of having like a technician learn complex query languages and then try to put things together. Generative AI systems that we're building will be capable of actually doing this for you, and then present to the MSP customer, to technicians, or to anyone who's interested, reports that summarize in fairly simple language what actually happened, without having to spend like hours and hours of extremely expert technicians or administrators to go through this. So there's a lot of good stuff there. Can AI be used for bad? Oh yeah, sure. It's like, I mean, today it's like just point the appropriate kind of bots to social media sites like LinkedIn, and it's going to be extremely simple for someone who's reasonably capable to create very specific spear phishing emails, specific social engineering attacks based on what they find online, and then ship this off, right? So there's a lot of automation and capabilities that are in there. It's like, gone are the days where it's like, oh, just look for the typographic errors and the grammar problems, and it's like you will find immediately what the phishing email is. That's I mean, that still happens today, of course, but it's like anyone who's like halfway capable is not going to do this. So AI is important. It's like, understand what it can do for you from the defensive side, and then that'll really help you drive a lot of the or lower the risk around attacks.
Okay, let's wrap up with one more question. All right, so what our audience today, MSPs, we know and love them. I say MSPs rock, right over here, you can see over my shoulder. We love our MSPs. We also love IT teams and organizations that do work with us directly. They need to go convince some boss, or they need to go convince a client that to take action and expand the levels of layers of security. They need to go beyond just backup. They need to add EDR, XDR. They need to add security awareness training. What advice do you have to these people how to help their companies evolve?
Oh boy, it's like, how do you talk to your board? How do you talk to your C-suite? How do you talk to your finance department of justifying one thing or another? We should probably do another one of those, Jeff. It's like to dive into this a little bit deeper, because I think that's a very interesting topic. The short answer is, it's like, focus on the risk. It's like deploying security just for the security's sake is a silly enterprise. It costs a lot of money, and ultimately is not what really moves the business forward. It's like, if you want to create a good security program, from my perspective, it's like, you got to look at the threat landscape, which is coming back to where we started. It's like the true Acronis True is really helping us and our partners to do is like understand what's actually out there today that's potentially threatening you, and then it's like, take that threat landscape and assess your internal your company and your business from that viewpoint. Is this something that is likely going to happen to you? If it's going to happen, if it's likely or not so likely happening to you, what's the potential impact to your business per se? So, and it's like that. It's like, it's the good old formula for risk. It's like likelihood times impact. Assess this across different kind of like systems, across different controls that you have, et cetera, and then focus on expanding coverage for security controls that really burn down risk. That is something that anyone who is in a leadership position, in a financial position, in an accounting position, etc., will understand. It's like burning down the risk that you have, and you can really balance this the risk you burn down on the one side with the additional spend that you have, and ultimately determine, it's like, if this is a good business decision or not. Many times it is, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you don't want to increase the security posture or improve the risk posture, because ultimately your business would not make quite as much money for whatever reasons, like whether it's go-to-market, innovation, or what have you. So there can be reasons where you don't necessarily want to go wild in terms of buying new stuff or deploying new technologies. But again, like I said, it's like, that's probably a discussion for more time.
You know, I agree. So I'm going to ping the team on this and say, hey, the next time we do one of these, let's kind of focus on that, helping people sell, helping people sell their boss, improve the need, improve the value that they're going to receive. Let's make that our next one together. I want to remind everybody that a link to our second half 2024 Cyber Threat Report should be in the chat wherever you are watching this. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, or if you're watching it on YouTube, there should be a link there somewhere. Find it, click it. You can download the report for yourself. It's no charge. You should go ahead and get it. And Gerald, I've enjoyed our conversation. We've gone a full 40 minutes now, so I think we got to let everybody go. We've already exceeded the scheduled parameters of this communication.
Yeah, it's like, I hear you. It's like, I love to talk, and love to chat with you, Jeff. This was great.
Great, Gerald. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Welcome to Acronis. And if all of you out there, if you go to an Acronis True Security Day, Gerald is going to at least a dozen of them. So if you bunch of them. So if you all over the world. So if you see Acronis True Security Day, schedule it, register, go to the event, see Gerald, go up and say hi.
Would love to talk to you all. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers, everybody. That's it for today. See y'all next time.
Thank you. Bye. Talk soon.